Okay, hello everybody. I hope everybody's fine. Now we will be working with a very important and interesting topic in programming, which is cycles or loops. And particularly, we are going to study the while loop, okay? And this is what we're going to be working on. But before we work on that, we need to see something that we haven't studied yet before we see the cycle. And it has to do with expressions that we have already studied, but it's not like a different type of expression, but it's one case of expression, and it goes like this. Let me show you, okay? Let's say I have x equals to 5. Then we print the value of x, okay? And then we say x equals x plus 1. And we print x again, okay? The first time I saw this when I was learning programming, I said, this is completely wrong. I mean, this is not true. And if you see it from the algebra point of view, you say, well, is the left side the same as the right side? But remember that the equal sign, it's not to compare things, it's to assign things, okay? So what happens here is the right side gets evaluated first, and then that value, after that evaluation, then it is assigned to x. So we're not comparing anything. We're not making a comparison. We're making an assignment. So the assignment is the value x has, which is a 5, and then it adds 1, which is a 6. And after I got that value, then it gets assigned into x, okay? Then we print it. So let's run it and see. Of course, it's going to be true, but let's give it a try. Okay, here it is. We say, okay, percent run while examples .py, shift enter, and there it is. First, I have a 5 here. Then I increment x by 1, and then I get a 6. And of course, this can be incremented by 10 if you want. Okay, and then if we run this, I didn't save it. Command S, then we run it, you get 15, okay? Whatever I put here, it gets computed first and then assigned. Now, this is so common that we can do something like this, x plus equal 1. This is equivalent to x equal x plus 1. Okay, this is equivalent. This is so commonly used that it has this form. Okay, all right. So if we do this here, and then we say print x, of course it's going to run. Save it and run it. Okay, 5, 6, 7. Now, if I do something like this, y equals 25, and then we say y is going to be equal to y divided by 4, and then we print y. So what's going to happen? And what's going to happen is exactly the same as above, but we're going to get a 25 divided by 4. And in this case, we can do this here. It's equivalent. It's exactly the same. It takes y, it divides it by 4, and puts the value back into y. Okay, so that is going to give me exactly the same value. Okay, there it goes. So let me move back here into the presentation, and I'll just go forward, because this is something important. When we use cycles, we use many of those structures. So you get plus, minus, multiplication, division, floor division, and remainder. And here is the equivalent, okay? This is an example, is plus equal 10, this is a 10, and this can be any number, and this can be an expression, and it can have a variable, okay? But that'll be pretty much of this explanation, but let's move on to cycles, okay? And we're gonna study the while loop. There's another very important loop in Python. I believe we don't see it in this class, but the while loop, it's very common in programming languages, and some programming languages, this is the only loop or cycle that they have, but it does have some things to watch for, okay? So while it is a statement, so it's a control statement also, where we have the process, the flow of our program. Then we run into the while, and if the statement here is true, it goes inside, and when it finishes the statements, it checks again. It goes back into the while, not before. It goes back into the while and checks this condition again. So this condition has to be true. While this is true, do this, okay? So before the cycle, this condition has to prove true in order to go in. So I need to put the conditions here to see if this is going to be true. So I have to do something before the cycle, okay? In the while, rather than output, okay, this is like a logic condition which cycles in here. And it usually has something that is called control variable, but it is not the only case of a while cycle, but this is very commonly used to have one control variable. First of all, you might not need a control variable, but it's very common, and you can also need one or more control variables. But let's talk about one control variable. Okay, inside the cycle, of course, we have an indentation, same as the if statement, and the instructions here get repeated over and over again while this condition is true. Okay, now, in order to go outside the while cycle and continue with the program, this has to be false, okay? So for this to be false, I need to do something here for it to come from true to false. Otherwise, it will stay there forever, in which case we have an infinite loop, okay? Now, let's see. Let's move on a little bit and we go into some examples, okay? This is the flow, this is a flow chart for a while cycle. Look at this. This looks like an if statement, okay? This looks like an if statement, but it is not an if statement because in the while loop, we go back and check for the condition again. And the if statement only goes forward, okay? We have the if statement here, and it checks conditions, and after it's done, it continues. It doesn't go back. In the case of the while loop, it goes back and checks for the condition every time it finishes its statement block, okay? Okay, very good. Now, we have to think very well on our cycle. I mean, we need to think, how are we going to repeat this cycle? Is it a cycle that has a certain amount of times that something is going to happen? What do I want to repeat? What I need to change in each repetition in order to check our condition again, okay? And what happens if I run in an infinite cycle? It's a cycle that condition is always true, so it's in an infinite cycle. We'd say the program is in an infinite cycle, okay? So we already went into this, and here is an example, and then we will go to run the examples, okay? We have our control variable before the while statement. This is before, and then we check, is this variable greater than 0? Since the first time the value is 5, this is going to be true, okay? And then we go inside the cycle, and the first time we're going to print it first, n is equal to 5, so I print this 5. Next, I subtract 1 from my variable n. Now n is equal to 4. I go back here and say, okay, is 4 greater than 0? True. It goes inside. Now n is 4. We print it. And I decrement n. Now it's 3. I go back here. Is 3 equal to 0? That is true. Okay, so we print that 3. Okay, and then we decrement this variable here. Okay, now n is equal to 3 minus 1 is 2. N gets the value of 2. We go back. Is 2 greater than 0? Yes, we print it. How much is n? N is a 2. We print it. We decrement it here. Now n is equal to 1. I go back. Is 1 greater than 0? That is true. Okay, then we go inside. We print that 1, and watch for this. Now, 1 minus 1 is 0. Now, n is equal to 0. I go and check this and say, okay, is 0 greater than 0? Now it's false, and then my program continues. Okay, so I got this repetition 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 times. And the value started in 5, then 4, then 3, then 2, then 1, and we got this this loop, this cycle, this loop here, this while cycle here, repeated 5 times with the value 5, 4, 3, 2, 1. Okay. All right. Very good. Let me make a pause here. I need to do something. Hold on a second. I will be right back. Okay, so let's continue with our example here. We're going to basically be doing the same. Remember that we said n equal to 5, and while statement n is greater than 0, then what we do is we print the value of n, okay, and then we say n minus equal 1, or that would be the same to say n equals n minus 1. It's exactly the same, okay? Same as n minus equal 1. It's exactly the same, okay? And I will just add something here to say print by. It's not necessary, but it helps me see that the while loop finished and we are outside of here. Okay, let's save it. Let's save it and run it down here. We run it. Okay, it's 5, 4, 3, 2, 1, and then this goodbye here. It's slightly different from this here. It doesn't have a goodbye statement, but I like it because it tells me that I'm finished. Okay, now watch for this. This is important, and sometimes it may be confusing. This one prints 5, 4, 3, 2, 1. What happens? What happens? I will print another while statement here. I will make some changes and we will see the difference, okay? Let's see. I put it here. What happens if I say while n is greater or equal than 0? So we will see both cycles running, okay? We will see this cycle first, and then we will see this cycle first and see what happens. Okay, so we save it, okay, and we run it. So we got the first cycle, 5, 4, 3, 2, 1, which is this one here. And then we got 5, 4, 3, 2, 1, 0. Why 0? Because we have that we will repeat the cycle while n is greater or equal to 0. So when n is equal to 0, this is true and this gets inside, okay? So watch for that. Now, I will put those the same. So when we run it, we will see that they run exactly the same, okay? So we have 5, 4, 3, 2, 1, and 5, 4, 3, 2, 1, and bye. Now, what happens if we do this? We invert the order of those statements. So watch out, watch out. We run it, we save it, run it, okay? Now we have our first cycle, 5, 4, 3, 2, 1. And then it starts with 4, 3, 2, 1, 0. Why is that? Because here in my cycle, first I decremented my variable n, and then I printed it. So it does the cycle 5 times, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. But the value it prints is the value of n. If I decremented n first, then it will start in 4, okay? And it just does the cycle 5 times, okay? But if the order is different, I get a different result here, all right? So let me make a small pause here and we will continue. So let's run some more examples. Let's run some more examples, okay? Let's do a program that the purpose of the program is ask the user for numbers and add them all up, okay? Now, I'm not telling how many numbers. I'm telling just ask the user, add them all up, and you know, show the number at the end, of course, okay? Now, that is my problem, okay? So what I have to do is the following. Let's say, first of all, I have an option. And we say, we're gonna do the following. We're gonna say input, and we're gonna ask the user, do you want to add a number? You want to add a number, and we get the value here in option, okay? Now, before that, we say, I'm not using the correct variable names, but I just want to do it quick here. I would like to make like summation or add up numbers, whatever. I just put S, and we started with a 0, okay? Now, this is where I'm going to add up my numbers. Now, watch for this cycle. While option equals to yes, or option equals to yes in capital letters, we will do the following. We will ask the user, see, give me a number. I just use an integer, okay? Give me the number. Number, okay? I will read the number. I have it here in the variable number. This is what I read. This is exactly what I read, okay? I'm reading it, I have it here. Now, I am adding all the numbers. So now what I'm gonna do is S, which is the variable where I am adding all the numbers. I will say S plus equal number. Since the user typed here that yes, he wants to give me a number, I read this number and I put it here. Next, what I need to do now is I need to ask the user again in here, okay? Do you want to add, let's say, another number? So I read option again, and then it goes back and it will check for this for these values if he answered yes or yes in capital letters, okay? So it will repeat while the user is typing yes as an option, okay? And then at the end, we will print all numbers add up to, and that is going to be S, not number. Number is the number I'm reading every time, okay? S is the variable where I'm getting all the cumulative values that I'm getting, okay? Okay, so let's see, let's save it and let's run it and see what happens. Okay, do you want to add a number? Yes. Number 5. Do you want to add another number? Yes, with capital letters, okay? Number 7. Good. Do you want to add another number? No. Okay, all numbers add up to 12. See, I got this cycle over and over while option equals Y or option equals Y capital, okay? So I repeat this how many times? I don't know how many times, as many times as the user says, yes, I want to add another number, okay? I want to add another number. So this is a cycle that you don't really know how many times it's gonna happen, okay? You don't know how many times that is going to happen, all right? Okay, it can happen 0 times. Yes, it can happen 0 times. Let's run it. Okay, do you want to add a number? No. Okay, well, all numbers add up to 0. I mean, you didn't give any number, so it's a 0, okay? All right, very well. Now, it is a different story. It is a different story if we do the following. And let's do this. Instead of option, we will say n equals the following. We're going to ask the user how many numbers he wants to add. So we tell how many numbers do you want to add? Okay, so in n, I get as many numbers as the user wants, okay? Now, what I'm gonna do instead of this condition here is I'm gonna say, okay, while n is greater than 0, okay? So I input the number and I don't have to ask the user to, if he wants to add another number. I just have to say n minus equal 1. Okay, why? Because if he said 3, I'm gonna do it 3, 2, 1 times, and this is gonna repeat. Okay, this is going to repeat. Okay, sorry, here is number. Okay, so let's save it and see if it runs. Okay, there it is. I saved it. Let's run it. Okay, how many numbers do you want to add? Okay, I want to add 4 numbers. Okay, oops, I got an error here. Oh, okay, yeah, this is a problem. I have to say, if I'm reading an integer, I need to read an integer. I usually leave my arrows here so you can see how to fix them, because it's telling me, you know, this is not supported between instances of string and integer. So when I read this with input, I'm not reading an integer, I'm reading a string. I need to convert it into an integer, okay? So we have already fixed it. Okay, and then it should run now, I hope. Okay, how many numbers do you want to add? I want to add 4 numbers. Let's say 7, 7, 8, 8. Okay, so I added 7, 7, 8, 8. So that's 16 plus 14, that's 30. It happened 4 times, okay? Now, look at this. I can do something like this. I can say print n, okay? So this is gonna tell me what the value of n is, okay? Every time I get into the cycle, so let's do it that way. And we run it, and we say, how many numbers you want to add? I want to add 3. So I printed it here, a 3. So I had a number 4, 5, 6. So I got a 3, 2, 1, and it's telling me what is the cycle in the cycle. What's the value of n? Sometimes I want to do that. Okay. All right. This is another example. We can do many things here with this. Let's write another example. Let's do another example. Okay. Let me know if the number is an odd number. The user will enter numbers until he types a 0. Okay, so while the user is typing numbers, okay, it's going to give me it's going to repeat, but when the user types a 0, we are finished. Okay, we are finished. All right, let's do it this way. So what's going to happen here is, let me show you a trick that we're going to use here. We're gonna, n is gonna be my number, okay? N is gonna be my number. I will do this, and this is going to be n. And what we're gonna do is gonna repeat this. Okay, here we go. Okay, what I'm going to do here is I'm gonna make n a 1, okay? Now, I'm gonna repeat this cycle while n is different from 0, okay? Now, the first time, this is gonna be a 1, but the first thing I'm gonna do is I'm gonna ask the user for a number. So what is going to happen is that this cycle is gonna be repeated at least 1 time, okay? So I read the number, and then I say, if n mod 2 equals 1, what does it mean? If the remainder of dividing this number by 2 is equal 1, that is an odd number, okay? So print number n is an odd number, okay? All right, and now what we do is the following. I say, well, I need to do something here, because what if I typed a 0, I don't gonna give you an answer, okay? Because I'm not going to discuss if n is 0, if it is odd or even. So what we're gonna do is, if n is equal 1, and I'm not gonna do negative numbers either, okay? And n is greater than 0, okay? So I'm gonna check my number if the modulus is 1, okay? And if n is greater than 0. If it's 0 or negative, I'm not gonna check it. And I'm gonna just repeat it while n is different than 0, okay? So this should run, and then I always like to say, it is not necessary. Sometimes students ask, but I'm just gonna say print by. All right, so let's get started with this. Let's save it and see if it runs. Let's see if it's gonna run, okay? So I'm gonna run it. So your input is requested. Okay, so where am I here? Right here, I am inside my cycle, and it's asking for a number, okay? Now I'm gonna type, let's say a 5, enter, and it's telling me number 5, it's an odd number, okay? Now, let's try number 14, and it doesn't tell me anything, you know, because if it's an even number, there's no answer. So that is okay. So let's type number 1, okay? And it tells me 1 is an odd number. If I type a negative number like -5, okay, it doesn't give me an answer. It's just giving me answers for positive numbers greater than 0. Now, if I type a 0 now, okay, then this is goodbye, and our program is over, okay? So here we have an example of another program that we don't know how many times it's going to be repeated. I'm not asking for an option. I'm just checking the number that is being typed. And with that number, I do the processing that I need, okay? Okay, so let me make a small break here, and I'll continue with the recording in just a while. Okay, in order to finish, I will just do the example of the multiplication table, okay? The multiplication table, what's going to do is if I say, give me the table of number, the multiplication table of number 5, so that's going to be 5 1 by 1, 5 by 2, 5 by 3, until 5 by 10, okay? So let's do it, and let me just create a console here, okay? So let's do this. I need to know what a multiplication table the user wants. So I will put that in number n integer input multiplication table of, and we read that input, okay? And what we need is a counter which will start in 1, okay? And what we're gonna do is while count is less or equal to 10, so what we're gonna do is the following. Count is gonna be 1, and it's gonna go 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, okay? It's gonna go from 1 to 10. Now, I'm missing this here, okay? There it goes. Now, what I'm gonna do is we're gonna say print, okay? Print, and we have number n, so I'm gonna print n, and I'll just put a string here, which is multiplied by count, okay? We put another string here that is gonna say is equals to count multiplied by n. So this thing here does the whole thing, okay? We print our table number here, which is, if it's 5, it's going to be 5 1 by 1, 5 by 2, 5 by 3, 5 by 4. So that number that is iterating from 1 to 10 is count. Then that equals to the number n multiplied by my count. And the only thing that I need to do here is count plus equals 1. Okay, and that should do it. That should run it. Okay, let's see if it runs. Command S. This is not going to work. Okay, yeah, it worked. Multiplication table of 5. Okay. Oops, that's an error here. What do we have? Oh, no, it's not count. It's count. Okay. So let's save it and run it again. So the multiplication table of 5. So I have 5 by 1, 5 by 2, 5 by 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10. And this pretty much does the whole thing. We run it again. Okay, let's do something we didn't like, but there it goes. Multiplication table of 12 is 12 by 1, 12 by 2, etc., etc., etc. Okay, so this pretty much solves the whole thing. This is fixed. It does it 10 times because there's a 10 here, okay? And this is pretty much it. This is the last example I'm going to see here. So good luck with your activities. Have a nice day. Thanks.